I'm very pleased to introduce, we've got 5 different speakers, all part of a project that the RNAA have set up for sustainable farming event. So our first speaker is Poul Hovesen, who is, you'll likely know, as president of the Royal Norfolk Agricultural Association. He was farming director at Holcombe Estate, as well as estate manager at Saul Farms Company. So Poul, can I welcome you to the stage to explain a little bit more about the RNAA Sustainable Farming event? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can you hear me all right? Yes. Thank you to FOAG for addressing this subject at the conference. Norfolk's future as a food producer. Norfolk has always been seen as a prime area for food production. The Romans saw it as their breadbasket, and historically new developments and changes in agriculture has mostly come out of Norfolk. I was just about to say always. We must protect the landscape. We must restore our landscape, and we need to protect our water from diffuse pollution. Over recent years, there has been many statements circling around the world of food production and landscape management. Regen farming, zero emission, carbon farming, sustainability reports is now part of many supply chains. The processors, especially, had to look towards their suppliers for more information around the emission and carbon footprint of their produce. The RNAA realized that there is a role in bringing individuals representing all aspects of the supply chain together to discuss the challenges and gaps in our knowledge. How do we define sustainability financially and environmentally? After a small little subgroup had a few discussions, we organized 2 roundtable discussions. The first one, how do we optimize efficiency and financial return on food production? The second, environmental schemes, are they working for us? That led into the big debate taking place at the Norfolk show. The discussions included researchers, producers, and processors. It became clear that we need closer collaboration between them all. We need to capture and share data, and we need new technology to handle this data. We will have a few short presentations addressing the point that was highlighted at the Norfolk show under the big debate. And following those presentations, Natasha will tell us a little bit about the road forward. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. So yeah, clearly that being, we're the pressure of being sustainable and financially viable is key at the moment. And so to start us off on this journey, we've got Chris Graf-Grote, who is chairman of the Nuffield Farming International Scholarships Trust. He was a founding partner of Spearhead International, one of the largest agricultural producers in the EU and UK, and is a member of the Council for Agricultural Development for the Terra Nostra Foundation. Chris is going to speak to us a little bit about regenerative agriculture certification standards. We've heard a lot today about baselining, and I guess certification standards are a baseline. So over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. That's me, a bit younger. That's my title. Before I go into my hopefully rather short bit, I've just returned from the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN in Rome, 80th World Food Forum. We have been trying on behalf of Nuffield Farming International Scholarships to generate some scholarships for sub-Saharan Africa. The current FAO motto is better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life. I learned some salient facts, which I'd just briefly like to share with you. The world is spending 2.6 trillion a year US dollars on the military. The UN, which was founded to develop peace, the budget of the UN is 1/750th of this, at approximate 4 billion US dollars. The FAO is just over 1 billion US without the voluntary contributions. The voluntary contributions make up 75%. 2.6 billion people do not have access to a proper diet, although we produce enough calories. Poor nutrition obesity, which is 3 times larger than hunger, is costing the world health system some $262 billion a year. Agriculture has broken 5 of the planetary boundaries. We are falling behind on the social development goals set by the UN to 2030. In short, we're falling way behind. And at the current rate, we will hit the brick wall about 2100. Food is life, peace, solidarity, conversation, community, opportunity, being human, everything that matters. It is what we are. The world lives off 6 inches of topsoil. No soil, no food, no life. It takes 1,000 years to build 1 centimeter of soil. The business I co-founded as FarmWorks Limited, Spirit International, now Top Farms International, has developed a regenerative farming certification model addressing the above problems in our small way. I would now like to share with you briefly what we do. What is regenerative farming about? Just a very brief recap. Holistic system of agri-technical activities, choosing biological method and using chemical method only when alternatives are not available. It's safe food production. It's environmental protection, nutrient balance, microbial development, and soil quality and health development. They are the targets. We call it the Regen Farming Code, the 5 C's: calcium, carbon, cover crops, cultivation, and culture. Calcium nourishes the soil. Carbon provides soil life. Cover crops keep the roots going. Cultivations do not disturb the soil unnecessarily. And culture is the environment and living in symbiosis with it. Now, just very briefly, what are the benefits? What have we achieved? You're looking at 2016 to 2019 when we first started this, going down that road. The basic results at top farms in Poland have been 11% total input reduction, 4% lower basic fertilizer cost, 5% lower liming costs, 25% higher natural fertilizer use, and 62% more covered soil. What has been the impact? The organic material has moved on one of our sandiest farms from 1.72% to 1.88% over 3 years, and the carbon has increased from 0.97% to 1.10%. These may appear to be low figures, but they're pretty fascinating. On the commercial side, it's beginning to gather traction. If you look at the red line, that is our local sugar beet factory, Pfeifenlangen in Goshtin, their losses across the board. The green line are our losses, and we supply them with about 2,000 hectares of sugar beet. So there's some real benefits that are beginning to get traction. One or two of our customers are paying us a premium. Now, what it's all about. The Nostra, Terra Nostra, is a independent charity set up by farmers for farmers. It sets standards and monitors progress. You become a member once you've fulfilled the parameters. That usually takes about 2 years. The standards are audited by Bureau Veritas. Bureau Veritas is the world's largest verification body. It's increasingly recognized by customers in the potato industry, with grain, and the sugar processing industry, and there will be more. And it could be organized collaboratively with businesses regionally at a relatively low cost. This is how we started in Poland. We just did it on one farm initially. Today, we run an annual conference attracting about 600 farmers from all over Poland and 2,000 by Zoom. Follow the proceedings. It's a whole day conference. And the spread is now a good 80,000 hectares. We've got several agreements with customers who pay a premium for the product coming from us. And we're beginning to learn that the intrinsic values in nutrition are increasing as compared to their normal standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Absolutely fascinating to hear what's going on in Poland, and perhaps we can try and imitate something over here in the UK on a similar basis. Right, next up is Professor Andrew Lovett. Andrew is the Professor of Geography at the School of Environmental Sciences at UEA. His work focuses on, I think you're looking for this, rural land use change, climate change and ecosystem services using GIS. He has produced a register and risk assessment of natural assets in Norfolk and Suffolk and was lead on the nationally acclaimed Wensum demonstration catchment project. Andrew is going to talk to us about the future of farming in Norfolk, what the opportunities to benefit farming and the environment are. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I was involved in the roundtable events. In May, and there's a particular emphasis on how we might extract better financial value from good environmental practice and how we might ultimately derive what you might think of as a Norfolk brand that could provide wider benefits. So I was thinking a little bit about what we could do to try and sort of bring in new opportunities for farming in Norfolk. So I'm just going to briefly talk about a couple of recent reports and strategies and what I think they have in terms of the implications for farming in Norfolk. So I want to start with these two reports. These have both been published this month. The one that you can see on the left-hand side is a global study. It's from something called the Eat Lancet Commission. And it's basically a review of the entire world's food system, the kinds of problems that it currently has, which we've just very eloquently heard about, and what we might try to do to try and address some of those sorts of problems. So that's a global focus. And on the right-hand side, a more recent plan, recently published by the Agri-Food Network project in the UK, which tries to set out a strategy for the UK food system, a roadmap for resilience. I'm very pleased to say both of these reports have got contributions from my colleagues in UEA, and it's really striking how they sort of highlight the central role of the food system in addressing very many of the wide environmental and societal challenges that we have at the present. So you can see the quote there, you know, a food system is fundamental for solving crises related to climate, biodiversity, health and justice. If we want to address some of these issues and we want to improve both our livelihoods and the livelihoods of future generations, transition in the food system is a really, really important leverage point to trying to achieve this. So what does all this have to say about sort of opportunities for Norfolk? Well, it does, because both of those reports talk about the idea of dietary change and indeed the importance of dietary change in trying to achieve these sorts of food system transformations. So the Eat Lancet study actually proposes a planetary health diet. It tries to identify the combinations of different foodstuffs that would be needed to provide a healthy diet for the whole population of the world in a more socially just and less environmentally damaging manner. And so it specifies for all different foodstuffs what that could be. It's a calorie intake of about 2,400 kilocalories a day for an adult. It's flexitarian, so it's not simply just, say, vegetarian or vegan. It includes an element of meat and dairy products, but it is much more plant-based. About 2/3 of the intake would be from plant foods. What does that have to do with Norfolk? Well, what I've done on this chart is I took some information from that report on the average GB adult consumption in GB in 2020. That's what you can see on the bars. So the top bar is red meat, below it is roots, potatoes, poultry, milk, eggs, and so forth. Going down lower on the graph, you can see things like fruit, vegetables, peas and beans, and legumes. The vertical line that you can see, the kind of 100% line, that is what we would have to be at to match the Eat Lancet planetary health diet. So where we are way above it, those are things that need to be reduced. And indeed, the direction of travel in some of those is being reduced now, if you look at recent government statistics. But for me, the really interesting thing is what's at the bottom. Fruit, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and legumes. Arable farming in Norfolk is really, really well placed to grow those things in the future. I'm not saying this is a transition that's going to happen next year or even in 5 years' time, but it is a really important opportunity in terms of how our farming systems might evolve in the future, and actually could provide really important economic and environmental benefits at the same time. Norfolk is well placed to take advantage of that. So I think that's a global thing, but it has local implications. And then we have to sort of think about the idea of land use. What does all this mean in terms of what our land might look like? So we've just heard from Jen about the local nature recovery strategy. I picked out from some land cover data where we currently have cropland in Norfolk, the areas you can see on the top left map, where we have grassland. Then these are the areas that are highlighted in the draft local nature recovery strategy as being important areas for biodiversity at the moment, the protected areas, the designated sites and so forth. And then the last map is the areas that could be important for biodiversity. When I look at that map, it has several implications for me. I'm really struck by how those areas of importance for biodiversity are concentrated in certain parts of the county. And they're not, by and large, many of the areas where arable farming is important. And I think that there's a wider debate to be had. There's an opportunity for the farming community very definitely to contribute to the goals of the local nature recovery strategy. But there is also a debate to be had about whether we should be going for land strategies where we're trying to spatially separate different objectives, what you might call a land sparing approach, or should we be trying to integrate them, more of a land sharing approach? That, I think, is one of the debates and discussions that we need to have in terms of the opportunities for Norfolk farming in the future and producing both economic and environmental benefits. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you very much. That debate about land sharing and land sparing, I'm sure will carry on, and a really interesting one at that. Next up, we've got Rebecca Gee from Crisp Malt. Rebecca is currently Director of Grain Procurement at Crisp Malt, having been with the company for the last 10 years. And she oversees the operations in both the UK and Germany. Crisp Malt has developed the UK malting industry's largest sustainable agriculture initiative, working closely in long-term supportive relationships with farmers. So really excited to hear about what's involved in that project of helping farmers work together. Rebecca.
Thank you. Yes, so for those of you that don't know, Crisp Malt is based in Norfolk. We've been in Great Ryborough since 1870, and therefore this topic is really important to us. Keeping the food production in Norfolk and seeing that continue for many years to come is very, very important. We began our sustainability journey quite some years ago and quickly realised that actually looking at your Scope 3 emissions is quite a difficult challenge. We started off in 2002 collecting greenhouse gas emissions data from our grower group, and we used Map of Ag as a tool for that to collect our carbon data. We continued this for 4 years and managed to collect 4 years of data from the same farms within our grower group, and quickly expanded this across our grower groups, containing 200 farms and over 100,000 tonne of barley. We quickly realised, though, that looking at the malting barley crop in isolation might not be the best method, and that looking at just the carbon footprint wasn't necessarily the best way to go about that. We wanted to look at sustainable agriculture as a whole, and we didn't want to have a reduction in carbon of malting barley at the expense of all the other crops in Norfolk. We also quickly realised that monitoring the same farms year on year was really valuable and a really good opportunity for us, that we could really see some real change on those farms if we continued to look at those farms year on year. So yeah, that's where we posed a good opportunity, and we started to look at launching our Sustainable Agriculture Initiative Field Forward. So the key to all this was collaboration, and we really collaborated with our merchants and our grower group to determine what the real risks and concerns on farm were, understand the crop rotation, and also understand what was happening on farm already. And we were able to determine that many of the practices under the regenerative agriculture umbrella are already happening on farm. And actually the real challenge that we had was collating this data in a way that's useful for us and for the grower. And also that would allow us to target initiatives that were beneficial on farm. And that was the key for us, that we really wanted the things that we were aiming at to be beneficial and allow that knowledge exchange amongst our grower group. So in the early stages of forming our initiative, we recognised that not all the methods listed under the standard regenerative agriculture list were necessarily applicable to all areas. We're now trying to operate this in 3 different areas, in North Norfolk, in Scotland, and also just starting off in Poland. And all of those areas are very different in terms of the growing regimes. So all of the practices were very context specific and needed to look at the local area to look at those initiatives. For that reason, we decided to focus our initiative on sustainable agriculture rather than regenerative practices, as we really thought it was important to imply that doing the right thing for both the environment but also for the farm business is important. We decided to align our initiative with the SAI Regenerating Together platform, and we've just undertaken a pilot scheme with that platform. We knew at an early stage we wanted to have third-party verification and results that could provide transparency for our customers, but also for the farm, and give them some verification of what they are doing on farm. And we wanted to make sure that we could confidently make claims about the work that our growers were doing and undertaking. And the Regenerating Together programme was a really good fit for that, as it's globally recognised and context specific, allowing you to tailor the scheme for specific context. So there are 4 principles of the Feel Forward initiative, focusing on soil, biodiversity, water and climate. And just to talk a little bit about where we are now, so we've just undergone a data collection survey from our growers, so focusing on what practices are happening on farm. We've also completed a context analysis, so not just looking at the results of the survey, but also looking at the national data, things like magic maps, to look at what the risks are in Norfolk and what they are the key areas that are a risk to our business in terms of being able to buy malting barley from this area going forward. We've agreed targets with our grower group, and I think that's really important that we collaborated with our grower group committee on those, so that making sure that we're really setting targets that are going to be beneficial on farm and that the farmers really want to be involved in and want to achieve. We'll then continue to monitor these targets and document the outcomes that we see going forward. I think what this all does provide is a really big opportunity to collaborate across the food system. So we now have a lot of data. We're focusing on the whole farm when we're collecting this data. So we're collecting information about the crop rotation, the different practices, the amount of biodiversity on those farms. But it's really difficult for us as a purchaser of one specific crop on farm to have an impact on the type of changes. So I think it's a really big opportunity to collaborate across the food producing buyers in Norfolk and have a real impact on those initiatives going forward. It's why we wanted to really be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's great to hear. As I said earlier, a lot of the talks today have been linking in with the customer, so it's actually great to hear from a customer, and it's important that we all remember we need to do that rather than just grow the crop. We need to be thinking about the customer as we're growing it. Right, finally in this session we've got Natasha Grist, who is a John Innes Foundation Fellow based at the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development, integrating agriculture and climate change in planning and practice. She's been working closely with the RNAA group, leading this initiative, so thank you for that, and supporting links between Norwich Research Park and the farming community. So Dr. Natasha Grist is very kindly going to give us the plan for 2025-26 and the road ahead. Over to you.
Thank you so much, John. I hope everyone can hear. Well, thank you all so much for joining this session, actually, first of all, because it's been a journey over this year, and it started last year. We've been working with the RNAA, sounding out the issues that farmers are worried about and concerned about, and also all the amazing things that people are doing around environmental services, ecosystem management, and that has led us to this point of this year, hosting 2 roundtables in April and May, and then hosting the big debate which we had in June at the Norfolk show. We have got these reports available. If you come to the UEA stand, we've also got a QR code so you can see on our website. We've got that and other information available for you. So please do come and get that at the end if you need to. I want to say thank you so much to the speakers who've been involved in different ways through this journey in the last few months. And we picked out 3 of those issues that people were particularly interested to hear more about, and things that hopefully we'll be able to take forward. The ideas around the certification scheme, looking at collaboration between farmers and food processors, and then thinking about what the implications are of the bigger, wider research that's going on, the policy initiatives and so on, with the local nature recovery strategy and the Lancet programme and the Agri-Food for Net Zero report that's just come out, just to name a few. So I think there's a big challenge for us in terms of bringing all of that together and thinking, what does this mean for Norfolk farms and for those who are producing food, and working with those who produce food along the value chain? How can we support people as they move along this process? Also want to mention our steering group, which is not just Paul and I, but very ably guided, assisted by Bob King, Emily Norton and Mark Nicholas. So together we're the ones responsible for thinking up some of these ideas. And a great thank you as well to Clark Willis as well for his steering and guidance in the process. So we've heard about 3 elements today, which was around the Regen Ag certification, around the collaboration, around this national and international policy. There are other things that we talked about as well, and you can have a look in the reports for those. Perhaps we can pick those up in the next year. And what we found was really significant interest around some of these issues. And we wanted to think about, what is the role? Is there a role for us to take a county-wide approach to generating some focused activities? So we put together a couple of slides thinking about what could this be. So building on Norfolk's legacy of agricultural innovation, we were wondering, could we provide a current and future platform to look at the innovations that we have going on around Norfolk at the moment, both in the production side, around agricultural innovations on production, AI, precision agriculture, all of these new things that some farms are adopting different ways, but also around environmental sustainability, and many of those overlap. And we found that there were similar concerns around current and future farming. So we think that there might be a role for a group through the RNAA with the partners, many of which are here today, to then have a place where we can then discuss these issues. So a tentative set of activities, and we would love your feedback on all of these. So firstly, in the next couple of months, we'd love to solidify the levels of interest and refine the scope of what we'd like to do. That would be up until the beginning of 2026. And then I'll just outline 2 or 3 of the ideas that we've got, which are more substantive. So the first one that's come up across all of the discussions is around improving our understanding of what an economically viable and an environmentally resilient farming system or farming systems would be for Norfolk. And within that, we would love to create a space for discussion. We've already had some of that in this session now, in terms of hearing about some of these issues, but I think there's a lot of need for understanding and discussion of that knowledge, to look at what the definitions are of regenerative and sustainable agricultural practices. There's a possibility of us having a signposting place, a go-to for knowledge, our current knowledge and what we need to know, and then education and outreach. So a lot of organisations work in this area already, and I'm thinking about the FFDT, FWAG, others, LEAF. There are a lot of organisations. We're not looking to challenge that at all, but actually to work through those partners and have a place that people can come to for Norfolk. The second set of activities people have suggested would be really useful would be to link, showcase and develop these research and innovations. We have farm clusters that we've been speaking about already today with WAG and Leaf and others. And there's a lot of work going on. But there's also a possibility for us to define some of the gaps that we have across the county and then to develop some applied research, which is part of the reason that I'm involved in this, coming from the University of East Anglia and working across the research park. So we can help to shape some of that applied research which is needed in the future. One of the other topics, I'm sure some of you will have heard about this already today. There was a recent senior leaders meeting hosted by the RNAA around water. Many people from Anglian Water are here today. We know that this is a really critical issue for our farming community, around abstraction, around regulation, around availability, around future planning for climate change. There are huge needs for improved collaboration around this. And so we think this could potentially be one of the foci for next year. And then finally, collaboration has come up in every single discussion. So we've heard this morning, if some of you were able to join Kate Dwally's talk in the morning, around farm clusters and how farmers have felt significantly supported by their participation and membership in farm clusters. And the funding for that is now questionable because they have 3 years of funding, and then there's a question of what's happening with the future. So even at this farm level, we have evidence that this has been very helpful. But then there's wider collaborations that we've seen. And so with the example from Malt, we see that increased level of collaboration and sharing and collecting of data and then understanding across and along the food value chain has been really, really important. And it provides then the opportunity for those products to have an increased value when they reach market, because there is dependable and trustable data that comes from the farmers and is then packaged then for the consumers. And then the final part of that would be about sharing our information together, developing that trust. And we need to think a little bit more about what's going to be most useful for that. But we found absolutely over the last year that just having applied researchers in the room together with farmers and together with the food processors and the retail has been really, really useful and important. So we'd like to continue that. So thank you very much. Those are our initial ideas. What I would suggest is, if you're interested, please come and talk to us at the end. We will stand here for a little while. I think we're ahead of time. So please come and have further discussions with us. Come and talk to us at the UEA stand or anybody from the RNAA. And thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Natasha. And thank you for giving some leadership within Norfolk agriculture. That sort of brings to the end our speakers this morning on this mapping seminar sessions. Thank you to all of our speakers this morning. It's been great to hear from you. As I said, leadership from the County Council, and lots of working with customers. I think that's the one things I'll take away from this morning.